Okay, so we've had quite interesting comments and feedback from the audience. I mean, it's extensive. I can't imagine the brief that I'm going to prepare for. It's definitely not going to be a brief because it's so many recommendations which are very key. And I definitely believe that they can be interventions that can contribute to effecting change, especially in some of the different policies that we've spoken about earlier. But in the interest of time, I will invite the panelists to just have brief closing remarks so that we can close this panel discussion. I will start with, well, Mr. Hillier, and we'll end with the minister.
This was definitely an exciting engagement, getting the feedback from the various stakeholders in the market, both private and public. And this is the reason why this was organized, to sort of bring about this level of collaboration, because sometimes you only know what you know. So when you bring outsiders within your circle, that not know. I believe that in my own capacity, there are certain pieces of information that I picked up on that I was not aware of prior to this consultation. I mean, just to touch on a few things, there's a point that Sheldon made, and it might seem like a dangerous point, but I feel that it is something that is worth considering, deregulation. The question is, how far do we go? What is the level of risk that we can take as a nation? Because there are some policies in place that can sometimes stifle creativity, entrepreneurship. I know, for example, one of the challenges that we have had for the small business owner is that there is right now a very stringent application of your annual returns, even for the NGOs and the NPOs, where you have to provide your financial statements. It has to be audited. And for an up-and-coming business owner, young person, to pay $3,000 for the purposes of compliance can be a deterrent in itself. And the question is, yes, we recognize the need to comply with the various laws and regulations, but can a reduced approach be applied, such as management accounts that is vetted by a third party rather than going to the extent of audited financials? And that can be tiered to the level of income. We heard about 250,000 being considered as small. I think 250,000 is a bit past small for the context of a growing business person. And maybe that's another thing that can be tweaked, where you have different levels of grants based on the income and the size of the business. So different ideas that we can think about. The topic of agriculture, I mean, for those who do not know, I used to work in a hotel, so I know all about trying to source materials. I left being in the hotel, I went into accounting, left accounting, now I'm in insurance, but there is definitely a challenge in our farming industry from a business perspective. We have the land, we have the people, but the question is, with all of this coming together, why can't we get the consistency that is required? And I've heard it even up to this day where hotels still have challenges in getting consistent supply of produce. And if we are talking about standards and being ready for what is to come, and we're struggling right now, we have to start analyzing and addressing this right now. I mean, I serve on the board of the Bureau of Standards. There is a program, the Farm Certification Program, DOMGAP, where it is teaching farmers to master the basics. Then you can go to the next level of being intermediate, and you can go to the professional level of knowing all the best practices. Only less than 10 of our farmers on island subscribe to the program. So the statement went back to what Robbie said. How serious are we about what it is that we do? We have to make an investment in ourselves, within our own capacity sometimes, to lend a hand in building the nation together. The question is now, why are the farmers not subscribing to it? Does the private sector have a part to play? Because at the end of the day, in all fairness, if I'm a certified farmer, I can go to research. Are they going to ask me whether I'm certified or not? If I go to our friend at the back, is he going to ask me whether I'm certified or not? So we have a part to play in the private sector in terms of establishing the standard that we want to push in the market. The technology aspect, digitization, though we think about it from I would say the basic level, but it touches every aspect of what we do. Even coming out of Hurricane Maria, I had a friend working in, I think it was the World Bank project, where they were coming to Dominica and using current practices to guide our farmers. And I think there was some tool where they would just stick it in the soil, get the readings, and be able to tell the farmer what you should and what you should not plant there. And they got so much fight back. How do you know that working? Just as we heard earlier, that cannot be true because that's not how I've been farming. So as much as we put digitization, we have to see it across the board, every aspect of the economy, farming, retailing, business management, marketing, because it can make a difference. And I mean, I was expecting Robbie to speak about AI, but if we are really being real about where technology is going, we have to have some kind of AI policy as a nation. Because it is, in my humble opinion, a tool that can allow us within our small capacity to catch up with the larger nations in terms of efficiency levels. It is not to be depended on, but it is to be utilized for us to be more efficient. But I mean, these are a lot of discussions that will be held. I could go on, but we have other panelists on lunch. Yes. So thank you everyone for your contributions so far. And definitely I look forward to your continued engagement as we have presentations later.
Thank you, Mr. Hillier. Mr. Edwards?
Yes, you can hear me? Good?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll be very brief. First of all, just thank you for the opportunity to be here. The amount of knowledge in the room, you know, we're talking about this. I think most people have been, you know, working on these problems for longer than I have, you know, in some cases longer than I've been alive, right?
Very much so.
So I just want to acknowledge the amount of knowledge in the room, because that really goes into my point, which is what I see in the room. I'm seeing like, you know, DHTA, DMA, you know, private sector, government. And I think actually my humble suggestion is that we just need to expand this room, because people want the same thing, but when we're not in this room, it feels like we're fighting together.
Right.
We're fighting against each other, right? It feels like Tony wants to digitize all of the businesses in Dominica, and he's working on it day in, day out, but it's completely disconnected from the program that wants to do the exact same thing, right? So I think it's just these conversations and the feeling, the intent. I think that might actually link back to what Brenton was just mentioning, which is like, why don't those farmers participate? It could just be as simple as they don't feel welcome. They don't actually think that the intent is to ultimately grow the industry and make them make more money. So yeah, that's all I'll leave with the audience today. I think we need to, when you look at all of the suggestions, whether it's Robbie's suggestion of linking existing entrepreneurs to people in schools, you know, or the suggestion of linking the retailers to the agriculture producers, we're really just talking about working together so that our economy works as a system where we all win. Yeah, so that's my contribution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edwards, for that intervention and your summary. And Honorable Pinard?
Yes, again, thanks for the invitation to be here. I think this was really an excellent engagement, good dialogue, good ideas contended, and so on. Lots of notes were taken, and I think we went a little bit too long before we responded to some. So we're at a point where some of these will have to be left for a later discussion. Well, a couple of things stood out. For example, it was mentioned between the disconnect between the government ideas, policies, programs, and the rate at which we implement those. I think that is a real thing, and it is a troubling thing. We need not just the civil servant, but the entire, you know, everybody to get on board and do take ownership of their responsibility to get those things going, because they matter. It's not just about talk. I mean, there's no benefit if we do not implement those actions. And so people need to look at themselves. Everybody needs to say, okay, am I carrying my load? Am I taking on my responsibility to make sure that we move this country forward. So speaking about personal responsibility, each of us need to look at ourselves and say, how are we doing? What are we doing to help develop, to help promote Dominica? Are we having a positive impact, or are we trying to bring it down and tear it down? When we're looking at the forces, the international forces at play, countries looking inwards, more and more you have less and less people looking to give assistance in terms of financial and so on. So, we're really relying on ourselves more and more. And so everybody should be looking to see, okay, how are they contributing to the development of this country? How are they impacting the direction that this country is taking? A lot has been said about in terms of the human resource. We hear about are we ready to take advantage of the opportunities that will come with various capital projects that are underway and so on. And again, here we have to take on personal responsibility. Are we scoping the environment? Are we advising others to scope the environment for opportunities? The government is trying to do its part. For example, we have the Technical Center of Excellence being constructed right now. We recognize the discrepancy in terms of what is being taught in school versus what is needed. And that is why there has been such ample discussions on education reform and so on. But people need to take those on. People need to say, okay, everything cannot be about, like Robbie made the mention about the culture in school right now is the focus, the higher profile given to science and students versus business students. And to me, that is upside down, because if you're looking at society, generally you will find the business people go into entrepreneurship and so on, they do better. As opposed to those people that just go and into science and you become a doctor and you get a job working in the hospital and effectively you live the rest of your life on a salary. So we need to, continue with the education reform and all of different things like that. Mention about the financial structure in terms of the high reliance on debt versus capital financing. I mean, that is a cultural thing. I mean, I was a student of finance, and it is something that I looked at intensely also in terms of one of the issues. One of the challenges we face is that we are way too reliant on debt financing, but that will take a seismic shift in our culture, not just in Dominica, but as the OECS in particular, in terms of moving towards a more market financing where we can get, equity financing into our capital structures. So the responsibility of that shouldn't just rest with the government. We have to look at the regulators, we have to look at the business people, we have to look at the people with excess capital, as opposed to just putting it in a bank, getting 2% savings. Are you looking for opportunities where you can invest and so on? So it is two hands. The government has to create the environment, but the business people have to come on board. And okay, I think I tried briefly to summarize all those I remember. But again, I think this discussion should continue. It will continue. We now have the private public sector
collaborative committee,
institution collaboration in place. And so I am pretty sure that this is just the beginning of more to come. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Thank you. And again, we really appreciate the different interventions. While the discussion started primarily looking at the private sector and the different policies that were implemented, we recognize that these discussions led into discussing agriculture, apiculture, tourism, and I mean, they're all inter and intra-related. And so it's necessary to not have, conversations that are divorced from it, but all of the conversations need to happen very much at an interrelated level. And so I've made many notes with regards to many of the interventions that have been discussed and presented here. But at the same time, obviously, discussion continues because we do have presentation from Josephine Gabriel in regards to the SSB tax for the discussion. And that is one that definitely the DAIC wants to champion because it's not necessarily only affecting them and production, but it's also affecting the consumption side. And we look forward to that particular contribution from Mr. Carbon. However, I know that I've had you sitting here for 4 hours and we want to ensure that we can recharge. So we're going to break quickly for lunch. And I will invite the minister and the permanent secretary and this table to lead us. So we will invite the table to